Welcome to another edition of Trail Runner Nation. My name is Don Freeman.
And I'm Scott War. And over 2 years ago, you guys will probably be surprised. Over 2 years ago, in episode 609, we did an episode with Adam Kimble where we first introduced the concept of Misogi, doing something so hard that it changes you. If you haven't listened to that episode, you got to go listen to it. For me, it was life changing. It's a really good episode. But this concept of Misogi came from a book by Michael Easter, called The Comfort Crisis: Embrace Discomfort to Reclaim Your Wild, Happy, and Healthy Self. And we might have even back then assigned this book to the Trail Runner Nation as a assignment to read.
Can we
And
do
then
that? Do we have that kind of authority?
Yeah, it's kind of like Oprah. It's a book club. But we kind of lost track of it. And even though we've all read the book, we actually had to go back and read it so that we could do this episode. But so we're here now 2 years later, and we're revisiting the book. We're putting some fresh eyes on it, and we have some deeper insights because we have more history, life history. So we're gonna talk about what it means to embrace discomfort in a modern world where everything is built for convenience. And more importantly, how can that mindset make us better runners and maybe, Don Freeman, better human beings? So we're joined by Adam Kimble. He's our resident book club reporter. I don't know how many book clubs we've done with Adam, but I will say that this is his 17th episode with Trail Runner Nation. 17 times. There should be a belt buckle for that.
I think there's a hat for it, Scott, and we'll disclose what that is in a minute.
He's a professional ultra runner. He's a coach. He's a race director, motivational speaker, and an amateur survivalist. Actually, maybe professional survivalist. I don't know what. I just like the ring of that. He's based out of Truckee, California. He's a former Division I baseball player turned to this endurance athlete. He's completed feats like the 2,500-mile transcontinental run, a record-setting FKT on the Tahoe Rim Trail, 60 days in the wilderness to win the Discovery Channel's The Wheel. If you haven't seen that, go check that out. It's on the Discovery Channel. And he has multiple course records and podium finishes as a premier ultra runner. And he's joining us today after just pulling into the driveway back home after finishing his first attempt at the Badwater 135. And I will say he ended up in fourth place at the Badwater 135. So not only did he go out there for the first time as a racer, but he actually killed it as a racer. So Adam, we're hoping you can stay awake for the 60 minutes that we're going to be talking.
Hey, Adam, for any of us that don't really know the flavor of Badwater, I mean, the name itself should be enough, but give us kind of an idea of what Badwater is and how is it different?
Yeah, I actually love that we're talking about the comfort crisis today because it feels like I was not at all comfortable in this race that I just ran. But yeah, it's you start at the Badwater Basin, which if people aren't familiar, it's in Death Valley National Park. You basically from where I live, you just go south on Highway 395 until you get to Lone Pine. Then you exit Lone Pine and go into Death Valley National Park, and it goes all the way back to this little spot called Badwater Basin. And the race starts there. There's a little sign. Everyone's there. It's actually really beautiful. The race starts at night, so you can't really see it as well then. But during the day, there's like salt flats around the area that are super cool and unique and really pretty. But you get there. I think the starting temperature for the race was 108 degrees Fahrenheit.
At night.
That was at 10 p.m. And then you run from there 135 miles all the way to the Mount Whitney portal, which is the beginning of the hike up to Mount Whitney. So I think the coolest part about this well, nothing was cool about it, literally. But the most interesting part about this is you start at the lowest point in the continental U.S., which is the Badwater Basin in Death Valley, and then you go to the start of the highest point in the lower 48 states, which is Mount Whitney. So it's a very, very unique journey through a desertous, hot, unforgiving bout of terrain, and it's pretty legendary, and I was glad to be a part of it.
What was your biggest surprise? Because you helped crew that, I believe. That's what kind of woke you up to, maybe I want to do this, but actually out on the course with a bib on, what was something you didn't expect?
Yeah, so like you just said, Don, 3 years ago, my friend Lindsay ran and I was on her crew, and that just intrigued me enough to want to come back and race it myself. I think being out there on the course, the thing that maybe it didn't surprise me the most, but just it was reinforced to me the most is how crew intensive this race is. Of all the races that I've ever been a part of on either side of it, there is this. So this race has no aid stations. It's all you're supported by your whole crew as frequently as you like throughout the entire race. And so some people get crew aid every half a mile, every mile. It's whatever you want for as long as it takes you. So it took me 23 hours to run this race, and I was seeing the crew about every 2.5 miles is what we settled on. That was about the amount of time where I was getting to the point where I needed more ice, more fluids, those kind of things. And anyway, it was a reminder to me of how intense of a job it is for crews during this race. Because like I said, I was 23 hours for my team. We started at 10 p.m., finished at 9 p.m. the following night. There's some runners that the course cutoff is 48 hours. So there's some runners that will take almost 2 full days. And so imagine if you're crewing someone every mile for 48 hours, right? It's just it's an amazing thing. And again, it just gives me a great appreciation for everybody that supports the sport in the ways that they can. I think there was a couple I guess all the members on my team probably don't have an interest in running that race themselves, but a couple of them specifically said, I'm so glad I get to be a part of this in this way. You know, they wanted to be a part of the race, but they knew they would never run it themselves. So it's special to share that with them.
and don't do this ever again, Adam. And you played your friend card once and you cannot play it again, huh? I want to make one note. It's not like I was following this, but it just appeared on my feed because I was kind of following you. There was an 80-year-old man that finished this race, 80 years old, running through the desert heat, and he was able to finish. That's just crazy.
So a couple things about that. His name is Bob Becker. I feel like tied into his story, even though I've met him before, but I don't know him well, but I feel connected to him, I guess I should say, for a couple fun reasons. One, 3 years ago when I was there crewing my friend Lindsay was the last time Bob attempted to finish the race. And he was 77 then, and he got across the finish line, but it was after the 48-hour threshold. So they sort of gave him like an unofficial congratulations, but you don't get an official finish. Comes back 3 years later, 3 years older, and he finished with 3 hours to spare. So he finished with 45 hours, had 3 hours to go. And then the other piece of it is and this is what I like, one of the entanglements of the running community, but the very first 100-miler that I ever ran in 2014 was called the Yellowstone Teton 100 over by Yellowstone and the Tetons in Idaho. That race no longer exists, but the race director of that race, her name is Lisa Smith-Batchin. She is Bob Becker's coach, this 80-year-old's coach. And I hadn't seen her since I ran her race over a decade ago. And I saw her at the awards after the race. We got to catch up and stuff. So that was super cool as well.
Well, I'd love to talk further about all the details, even have a separate episode on this because I have a lot of curiosity. But I have one question, Scott, and you can have as many as you want. My one question is, if you were to give someone advice that's going to run this race, what's one thing that you would tell them that would be specific for a Badwater versus an ordinary ultra, if there's ever an ordinary one?
Yeah, I'm gonna cheat and say two things here. One, go all in on the heat training. Like, just do everything in your power to make sure your body is as well adapted to that as possible. The other thing is, like, as it relates to that, even if you're not super well heat adapted, if you are constantly cooling your body, you can manage it. So, You just got to be smart during the race. And then the other thing is make sure that that your crew knows what they're getting into, and that they understand what it's going to be like, because I think that could be a big disconnect if somebody doesn't fully understand, like I said, what is required of the crew. I think that could make it a rough experience for somebody. So I would make sure that either you have very experienced crew or people that are ready to take on whatever comes their way.
Yeah, worst case scenario, your crew car leaves you going down the road and you don't see him again. So you better qualify him.
It's funny that you say that. It hadn't occurred to me until we were on our way to the start of the race, and someone was talking about something, and I thought to myself, I was like, if we have car troubles, my race is over. You know?
Oh yeah.
It's just it's something that you wouldn't normally, like, if that happened in a different race, you just have to rely on aid stations probably. But in this race, it's like, what are you gonna do?
Boy, I'll tell you, just talking and asking you questions, I'm reminded why I like you so much. One, the passion and the enthusiasm you bring to this after you just ran Badwater 135 in a 4th place finish time, and then drove all the way from Death Valley to Reno to Truckee, and then jumped on a podcast, and you're still smiley and having a good time. And the other thing is, we tried to ask you questions to pull out, personal information, and you kept pointing it to other people. You're very unselfish. But we've now spent I don't even know where my timer is, quite a bit of time, 11 minutes talking about this race. We will do an episode. I'm telling you right now, we're going to do an episode with Adam about this. But the episode at hand, the topic at hand, is the comfort crisis. And I will say, this is something that is just interesting to me. I was sitting on a plane and waiting at an airport the other day, and as you look around, everyone is on their phones or reading a book or doing something. And it reminded me, there's an old episode on Seinfeld where Elaine's boyfriend at the time, named Putty, I think his name is, they're on a flight, and and she's reading something, and he's just sitting there staring at the seat in front of him. And this just bugs the living tar out of her. She's going, aren't you gonna read something? He goes, no. Aren't you you want to take a nap? No. And I think this was the beginning of what people now call raw dogging. Now, it's not the sexual raw dogging that you may know, Don. This is raw dogging, where you actually sit on a flight, and a long haul flight, and you don't do anything. All you do is sit there and think and be with your thoughts. And I was thinking, we don't have that in our lives anymore. And that's what chapter 11, which is the one that I'm going to talk about, is how to rediscover boredom. And that's what my chapter is about. And so if you can think of Putty, if you haven't seen that Seinfeld episode, look it up. It's hilarious, like all of them are. But then just think, when was the last time that you actually sat still and just thought? I'm going to ask both of you. When was the last time you did that?
In fairness, I think I should go first, just because Adam is still scrambling from the probably the repetitive pounding from the road. So I'm going to say I have not done that in some time. I am doing something, or I fall asleep, and that's it. Either I'm on or off. I don't have much just sit and contemplate time. I'm always keeping my mind busy with something, throwing something in and spinning it around. So me, not often. That's why I'm interested in your chapter, Scott. How about you, Adam?
Yeah, this might be, maybe this doesn't fit the what Scott was saying there, but
that's okay.
The times that I do that are when I'm running, which I guess I'm taking an action, but it's when I'm running, or sometimes in the car too. I like to just turn off the radio and like just think when I'm on a drive somewhere. But again, I'm doing something. I'm not just, I'm not like Putty sitting staring, but those are the times that I tend to do the reflection.
Well, I think that's a perfect time to be bored intentionally if you're running. I can't think, and I'm almost embarrassed to say this because we've done so many episodes. In fact, we just did an episode with a brain doctor, and he was saying that even when you're listening to music, that causes your body to use energy, and you shouldn't do that when you're running. And I can't remember the last time I didn't listen to something while I was running, when I'm by myself or talking to Don when we're running together. But Michael Easter introduces this thing called boredom inoculation as a practice that intentionally exposes yourself to boredom in order to, one, build resilience, improve mental clarity, reclaim your attention. And he basically says, just as vaccines work by exposing the body to small doses of a pathogen to build immunity, boredom inoculation is about training your mind to be okay with stillness, discomfort, and silence. And as we just came off of Western States, I was thinking, a lot of times, at least when I ran Western States, I used the strategy. I didn't listen to anything for the first 30 miles, and I used music as a reward for completing 30 miles. And it was also a strategy to disassociate with what was going on, whether it's pain or fatigue or whatever, blisters for me. It was a way for my mind to be distracted from what's going on. And the book talks about putting yourself in this boredom state where you actually turn inward and you really participate in what's going on in your mind, in your body, your feelings. And there's actually been some research that the author talks about, and it really deepens your awareness. It recharges your brain. Somehow it unlocks creativity and problem solving. And I know that a lot of us go out for runs, and that's where we solve our problems. I think for me, for some reason, I'm able to do it with some music or a book or a podcast going through my headphones. But it's actually very beneficial for you. So my question to you guys is, do you think, after learning about the benefits of being bored, are you willing to try inoculating yourself with boredom?
Scott, I'll go ahead and jump in first and say that I always start the run, if it's a race, with something plugged in my ear or just stuffed down my shirt if it's, if they're wired, so that they're there to rescue me. But I don't use them. I find I run most of the thing. I'm so busy thinking about what's going on that I don't want to be distracted by noise in my ear. I'm busy. My brain is burning some calories too, trying to project what's going to happen to me.
But you don't do that in training, though.
I don't. You're right.
So you're saying what I think is coming out here with you explaining that is, maybe we need to practice and train our brain just as we're training our bodies for these races, and tuning into what our body is doing, so that when we're out there, maybe during a race, it's easier, or you're able to problem solve better. I don't know.
That's the old point, right? You're supposed to practice what you do on race day, and I'm not doing that at all. So that's wrong. Adam, I'm sure you're fresh off 135 miles. We're here to listen to you.
Yeah, my mind immediately went to, first of all, yes, I'm on board with this for sure. And I think we've spoken about this before, but there's a race that I direct in Namibia in Southern Africa called the Desert Ultra. And it's a stage race, so it's like 5 days long. It's in the middle of the desert, so nobody has any service, and you're just unplugged for a week, basically.
Wow.
And what happens every time that I'm there, and it's gotten harder with my kids getting a little bit older because I want to check in with them and stuff. But what happens is for me, that first day, I'm like reaching for my phone, trying to, like, do I got messages? Oh, yeah, I can't do anything. Like, there's like these habits of what we do in life. And then after that first day, I settle in, and it's so nice, so nice to have that unplugged time, because it sounds like goofy and cliche, but you really start to notice more things happening around you, whether it's in nature, whether it's just observations about people, and so. But then what happens is you come back. I come back from that race. You're back in society, and then you don't like. It's hard. It's very, very hard to get yourself back to that place when everything around you is not that place. So yeah, I'm on board with it. I love it. I wish I would do it more, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I know this is your chapter, Scott. I just want to throw it out because you threw out a question, and Ryan, our producer, is also on the mic here, and so I want to get him included on this. How many of your waking hours are you with your phone?
Oh my gosh,
I know it.
I don't even want to admit.
Let's let Ryan be the first to admit, and then we'll make ourselves look good.
Ryan's the youngest. The youngest. What generation are you, Ryan? Are you Gen Z?
In between Gen Z and millennial, leaning towards Gen Z. But it's different because I have siblings that are millennials, so I take after them. Anyway, I spend a lot of time on my phone. My screen time is probably crazy.
So it's always within hand.
It's always in your hand, right?
Pretty much. Or within arm's reach.
Yeah.
Mine's right here. Because that's in case Scott wants to text me with a message. That's my excuse. There's Scott's. And Adam, all your people are at home. We can hear them. So your phone's probably close to.
I will tell you how bad I am is I have an Apple Watch, and I won't get the subscription to have it, to have the chip put in the watch. I just think it's a waste of time because I tether it with my phone, and I always have my phone with me. So I use the Apple Watch, but I've never disconnected when I go for a run. Like Don usually leaves his phone in the car when we go running. And I can see why he would want to have a SIM card in his Apple Watch, but I just think it's a waste of time and money because I always have my phone with me.
And that's why I don't bring mine, because I can see yours when we're running. Adam, how about you?
Yeah, again, it's probably, I think like this is one of those things that, and I think they talk about this in your chapter, Scott, where I think Michael Easter is talking about one of his, because he's a professor or he teaches some classes, and he was talking about one of his students, like on the higher end of the range, it was like 10 or 11 hours a day on their phone. And he was like, "What are you doing?" And the kid was like, "Watching YouTube," something like that. But I think it's one of those things where it doesn't, I think we have a misconstrued perception of how much time we are spending on them or having them around. Like it might not feel to you like you're spending a lot of time on your phone, but then, a check here, a check there, and it's like 4 hours that you've been looking at the screen, So yeah. I don't know, like I try to keep that as minimal as I can, but it's probably, I bet I would be surprised at my numbers if I really looked at it.
I catch myself at the grocery line with two people in front of me, and I know it's going to take 2 minutes for me to take my turn, and I will take out my phone and start scrolling. And I catch myself and I go, what am I doing? Why am I looking at my phone for 2 minutes? Can't I just keep it in my pocket for that long? It's just nuts. Well, I know I'm taking more of my share of time with my chapter, but if you're interested, if you're interested in being inoculated with boredom, here are some simple exercises the author suggests. These are trail-based boredom inoculation practices.
Is our podcast on there, Scott, on the list?
No, it's not.
Good.
Although it should be, because it's pretty boring. That should be number one. Listen to a full episode of Trail Runner Nation and you will be inoculated with boredom. So here are the four things. One silent run per week. No headphones, no talking, just you and the trail. Okay. Number 2, run by feel, not data. Leave your watch or your wearable at home and just set out and go for a run. I find that also very difficult for me. Pause without purpose. As you're out on a run, sit on a rock mid-run and just listen, watch, and breathe. Just take some time out just to sit on a rock. Take the same loop. Repetition breeds boredom. And so by doing the same trail over and over and over, you're not worried about where you're going or getting lost or, stubbing your toe or tripping. You know the trail so well. And so I'm pretty good at that one. But the other three I could do a little bit more work on.
Oh, that's a great chapter.
Good chapter.
Very good.
Let's see, Adam, I think you said you wanted to do chapter 19.
Yes.
So tell us about chapter 19.
Yeah, let's get into it. So chapter 19 is titled 100 plus pounds, and it's kind of looking at how running and exercise has evolved over the course of time, because as humans initially, like our ancestors were more like exercise was a part of life, right? So it's like with the hunter-gatherer lifestyle of doing all these things, it was just, there was no like need to go to a gym to do, it was, like everything that you did in life was part of your active lifestyle. And it's actually, I forget if Michael Easter says this specifically, but I was thinking about this going through this chapter, how it's interesting. And I guess this kind of points to the cyclical nature of humanity and of life, but how it's almost like we just go through these phases of recreating how things used to be in a different way and putting a modern spin on it. So it's like we used to have this active lifestyle. Now we become more sedentary for all these different reasons. And so now we're trying to incorporate that active lifestyle into a modern age, and it just has all its complications because of how the world is. So anyway, I think the most interesting part about all of this is that and really, I think he points to farming as kind of the thing that changed the way humans lived, in that, like, it used to be go and get the kill, get the food, hunter-gatherer, yep. And then eventually it became, now let's grow more food, store it up. Now we have more at our disposal. And then eventually that led to the modern time of preservatives and much more unhealthy food and that sort of thing. But what was interesting about that was it's created both differences in how we exercise, but also really kind of brought about the exercise industry as it exists. And the real essence of this chapter that I wanted to talk about with you guys is, I just thought it was really interesting, and maybe something you don't think about a lot, but like I said, we're kind of trying to bring back this style of activity that originally was ingrained into society, but we're doing it in a way that's too comfortable now. So back when he gives like different, Michael Easter gives different examples of this, but he's like, back our ancestors, they didn't go and reach on the ground and grab a weight that's the exact same in both hands that has a nice little bell to hold it. And they were carrying uneven big things and moving around, and they weren't in a temperature controlled environment watching Netflix while they're running on a treadmill. They were, moving 20 miles a day, persistence hunting or doing whatever. So yeah, it's just really interesting to think about all those things. And I think specifically I wanted to talk about what you guys think about these little, I guess what you think about how comfortable your exercise is, and maybe little ways that you can make it less comfortable to help you grow a little more, if that makes sense. So say you're going to the gym, right? And it's the air conditioning is on and you've got all these things. So I just want to hear from you guys. One, do you think, as you think about it, are there aspects of your running and your fitness routine that you think are too comfortable? And what would you do? And if so, what would you do to change it? And if not, what are the things that you're doing to make it a little less comfortable and more productive for your brain?
This is very, very coincidental, Adam. I was at the gym this morning and I was just doing some warm up on a treadmill to get my heart rate going. And I was thinking, man, it is hot in here. Why don't they turn on the air conditioner? They have these ceiling fans going, but it's still way too hot. Don't they know it's like 95 degrees outside? And I was getting a little bit perturbed, thinking they owe it to me because I'm paying them $20 a month. They owe me air conditioning while I'm in here doing hard things.
I love that.
So I don't know whether I have a good. Obviously, I have a lot to learn from this book, and maybe I need to continue to listen to this on a loop. But I think that's one of my big things. The other thing that I think I need to do personally is we're in the heat of the summer right now in July in Northern California, and it's getting hot. We're in the triple digits, and I think, boy, if I don't get my run in before 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm not going to go because it's just way too hot. And that is just ridiculous. I should be thinking, when's the hottest part of the day? Let's go out and be a little uncomfortable. So I think that is one thing that I can do that's will make me more uncomfortable.
And Adam, I imagine you did a lot of that getting ready for Badwater. There was a lot of seeking discomfort and being comfortable with that discomfort because you were going to have 23 hours ahead of you. That was none of it was going to be easy.
Yeah, I actually real quick interjection there, Don. After I finished Badwater, I was texting with a good friend of mine. His name is Chris, and he's paced me at both of the Western states that I've run. And I think it was after the first one I ran in 2018. We were sitting on the infield after I just finished at Placer High, and he said something to the effect of, "So are you pretty excited that you don't have to like get into your car and turn on the heat every single day now?" Yeah, actually, it is a weight off the shoulders to be like, I don't have to intentionally insert myself into uncomfortable conditions just to prepare for this thing. So that is nice.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Well, I'm going to take the other side of that, Scott. I think as trail runners, and I know you do too, so I feel comfortable throwing this out there. It's not the easiest thing to do. It's a lot easier to stay home, stay in bed, or turn the air conditioning to a comfortable level. Just getting out there and putting the miles in is a test of getting out there and pushing yourself a little bit beyond comfort. Now, I know, Scott, you could say, you maybe should put some rocks in your shoes and force some chafage going on to make it very, very uncomfortable. I think there are extremes, but I think just getting out there is some work. Adam?
All I was going to say is one is greater than nothing. Is what I was going to say.
I think you should make a hat. No. Adam, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say that that fits perfectly with a thought that I was just having, and that's that as I was going through this chapter specifically, there's this kind of duality of there's certain aspects of the way we exercise now that aren't ideal, but ultimately exercising and running, period, is the most important thing. So even if you're on a treadmill in the most comfortable conditions, watching Netflix every time, that is better than not doing it. So it's important to keep. I think it's important to keep that perspective of our exercise routines are the most important thing, but there's a lot more to be gained, I think, from making it a little more uncomfortable and finding ways to challenge ourselves, even if it's not in major ways, but just to get a little bit more out of it.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean torture every single time. It's got to be fun. It's got to be light and easy. You've got to have some cruise days, and you have to have some work days. And maybe it's the 80-20 rule that 20% of the time you're pushing into some real discomfort and further than you would want to go, and the rest of the time, to avoid burnout and to avoid injury, it's got to be light, breezy, and easy.
I tape sandpaper to my inner thighs. Because I want to be uncomfortable.
Which direction do you put the grid?
Both ways.
Okay.
Double-sided
tape. Yeah.
All right. I gotta mention this. This is one more coincidence, and I could not wait to share this with you guys because it kind of ties together, especially because you said this is the 17th episode that I've been on, Scott.
Yeah.
So wait, at some point during those 17 episodes, we covered the book Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Yeah.
Yes.
And since then, I absolutely love him as an author and his ideas. And since then, I've subscribed to his newsletter that he sends out once a week via email. And today, on the day that we're recording this podcast, his newsletter came out, and he's got like, it's a 3-2-1 is what he calls it. And there's like some ideas, some quotes, things to think about. And I just wanted to read this. One of his ideas from today's newsletter says this: practice the art of small daily discomforts. Modern life is optimized for convenience and comfort. Your food can be delivered straight to your door. Your car seats can be heated. Your favorite shows available at the press of a button. We all enjoy convenience and comfort, myself included, but our bodies and souls yearn for challenge. We want to be stretched. A deeper satisfaction awaits after pushing yourself to learn a challenging concept or complete a humbling workout or have an important but difficult conversation. I was like, come on the day that we're recording this episode about the comfort crisis, it was just perfect. So I think to Don's point, like the 2080 thing, I think we don't have to kill ourselves all the time trying to insert discomfort into our lives, but a little here and there to sharpen the tools, I think is a really, really valuable thing to do.
This is embarrassing. I'm looking in the mirror a lot during this episode, but there was a time when I had a vehicle that did not have seat warmers, and I was just thinking, are you kidding me? I don't have seat warmers. And then I thought, I grew up in Wyoming where it gets cold. I now live in Northern California. It never gets below freezing. And I'm moaning about the fact that my car doesn't have seat warmers. Give me a break. Give me a freaking break.
I can go one up on that, Scott. My very first car, a 1973 Pinto station wagon, didn't have reverse. So you had to be a planner one or good at pushing and jumping in.
Wow. That's amazing.
I didn't live in San Francisco with all the hills. I was in the flatland, so it wasn't that bad.
And that wasn't the worst thing, Adam. It was a Pinto. That's the worst thing about that car. Not that it didn't have reverse. It was a Pinto.
It was humiliating. It was the worst.
Oh, my gosh. The closest thing I have to that, it's not my current vehicle, but my last couple of vehicles have been Jeeps. The one before the one I had now was a Jeep Patriot, and it had hand crank windows. So I didn't have automatic windows. I actually thought about that recently. I was like, oh yeah, I used to have to literally roll the windows up and down. So, all right. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
No, we're getting soft, gentlemen. The society is getting soft. I don't know what's happening next. Cars are going to drive themselves. I don't know. What were you going to say, Adam?
Don's car drives itself.
Not without me. Adam?
Yes, okay. It does. I've seen it drive without you.
Oh.
Yeah, so really the last piece of my chapter that I wanted to discuss with you guys is, so again, going back to any amount or any form of exercise is better than none. That said, the author talks about how exercising outside is different and better than exercising inside if you're just comparing the two. And so he talks about how navigating and making decisions, pacing yourself, all these things that we kind of do sort of subconsciously. You're not really actively thinking about it. When you're on a trail run, there's roots, there's rocks. You were thinking about how to jump over them, how to not twist an ankle, how to navigate. Maybe there's some poison oak that you don't want to get all over your body. You got to maneuver around that. Little things like that just don't happen on a treadmill. And these are really good things for both our body, but the other part of it that's overlooked is that it's really good for our brain as well. And so in this world of comfort and needing to stretch ourselves a little more, he talks about the importance of doing these things where we're engaging ourselves both physically and mentally. And that was another thing he referenced, the hunter-gatherer lifestyle, where people talk a lot about the physical nature of what they did, but not a lot of people talk about the importance of the mental side of it, which was understanding the animals and how they behaved, how long it took them to get tired, how to, position them to best favor your hunting skills and that sort of thing. So I just wanted to bring that up and ask you guys is that something that, because this was something that I realized I don't often think about, is how being out on a trail in nature is making me better, even when I don't feel like I'm consciously doing something about it. It's just the nature of what you're doing is forcing you to make decisions, and those decisions are making you stronger and in turn making you healthier, because a stronger mind leads to a healthier body, and good things come from that. So just curious what you guys thought about that, and if that's something you've reflected on before in your running.
Scott, this is an example how you put the mirror right back on the guy that asked the question. So it's getting us out of it. And that is, Badwater is on a road. And a lot of these trail runs, 100-mile runs, have been every step you need to take inventory. Where am I going to hit? Is it a good step? Where's a rock? Where's a root? You know, what's happening? You're on a flat road trying to stay on a white line. Did you notice a difference, mental fatigue of being able to shut down and cruise versus focusing on trail?
Yeah, definitely. I do think it's harder when it's just like the flat trail, more monotony, I guess, because I guess there's a natural distraction that occurs when your brain is telling you that you need to make these decisions. And when there's less of that, I think it does make it harder. The other thing is that I think over time, and maybe it'd be interesting. There's no real way to quantify this, but just thinking about somebody who's maybe more of a road runner background versus myself, who I started by running road marathons, but I identify as a trail runner more than I do a road runner. And I was fascinated because Death Valley is a really, really stunning, beautiful, unique place, like very, very unique. There's one section of the course where there's just these like mind-blowing sand dunes all over that apparently some Star Wars films did some filming there. And so I guess my brain, I do a lot of observing around me. So even when it's like this monotonous, there's not a lot of decisions to be made. My brain is being preoccupied by the things that can take my mind off of it and interest me. So I'm still, even though I'm not running through the sand dune, I'm using that, I guess, as a way to center myself. And I'm curious, as I think about it, I don't know if that's something that most people do, or if that's just because I'm using my trail background and applying it to the road. But I do think it's harder, to answer your question, Don.
I know for me, being out because I run a race that has both some road and then some trail and kind of bounces back and forth, as sometimes they do. And I've been able to relax more on the road because I don't have to worry about where that foot's going to land. It lands right in front of me, right the same every time. I kind of shut that decision-making process off and let my mind relax for a minute. So I see that as easier for me. Now, if it was the whole thing, I don't know. But maybe it was a variety. So, an unqualified answer about, and who knows if it's even close to accurate.
That actually makes me think of a story from a handful of years ago. I did like a 10-mile trail run with some friends, and the very last half mile of the run was pavement leading back to the cars where we parked. And the trail wasn't super technical, but there was a lot of stuff to navigate, right? And so I'm hyper focused. No issues on the 9.5 miles, and on the half mile back to the car, I rolled my ankle. And it was a classic example of my brain. My brain told me you no longer have to pay attention, and then it
happened.
Yeah, and it was a good snapshot into how the mind and the body interconnect and send signals without even thinking about it.
That's the time I said to you, Scott, I think I just fell off my Hoka because I rolled my ankle on a flat.
I want to just input, I don't know if it answers your question, Adam, but I sometimes accuse myself of being a trail snob. I don't like to leave my front door and go run around the neighborhood. It just doesn't do anything for me. And maybe I need to do that more to inoculate myself with a little bit of boredom. But I much more prefer to take a 20-minute drive up to the trails that we normally run around here and go out, because I feel more, I get more from that run, not just physically from the running, because I can get that walk, running out my front door, but I think emotionally, spiritually, probably mentally, because I'm paying attention to the trail, I get more out of that. And I think that it is a little bit more uncomfortable than running out the front door. So I think I just convinced myself that what I'm doing is okay, and maybe even better for me to be uncomfortable on the trail.
Yeah, and that brings up a great question and a great point as well, is in all this conversation of, maybe doing some things that make us a little less comfortable in our lives. I think I very much believe that is important, but I also think you have to understand yourself and understand where the tipping point of making this thing uncomfortable to the point that it is not fun for you or not bringing you any joy. Like there's got to be a balance in there. So, and I think that line is different for everybody. There's some people that can make themselves more uncomfortable on a daily basis and still derive a lot of happiness from that and be better for it. And some people that it's diminishing returns. So I think you just have to know yourself and kind of navigate that on your own.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Very good chapter. Chapter 19. What was the title once again?
100 plus pounds, I believe. Yep.
Good. Good.
And that rolls us into your chapter, right, Freeman?
And I volunteered to be after Adam, no matter what, just because I figured that the author had a reason for putting these two chapters in the sequence that they did. Not just that 19 is less than 20. I think the content drove it. And I'll end with the final comment that I wrote down about my chapter, which kind of segues in between. It says, humans are uniquely suited to thrive in extreme physical situations. Uniquely suited. And, through our ancestors and evolution, there's been a lot of harshness and struggles. And probably each generation can point to something that could have eliminated them or preserved them based on how they handled that unique, tough situation. And maybe it's that drives us to the trail, all of us, not just sort of to the trailhead, but to do hard things. Why would Adam go out and run through the desert and start at 10 o'clock at night in 108 degrees and run? Why? I mean, there's something, part of the adventure gene that we talked about, right? That there's some of that, but it's very human to go out there and really do something hard and to reach in and find out who he is. And I would think by now, running across the United States and doing you ought to know yourself pretty well right now, Adam, before you started doing all this stuff, I would think.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's, first of all, that was that little, what I don't know what the right word is, but that little snapshot of what you just said there was so eloquently stated, Don. I love that. But yeah, I think for me, it's just, and there's probably more to it, but for me, it's just, it's a curiosity about what we are made to do and what we're capable of doing, and just being in different environments and stretching ourselves mentally and physically and emotionally and spiritually in all these different ways. And I think it's just every one of those experiences is valuable for the next one, but it doesn't make the next one any easier. And so if you want to keep experiencing it, you got to keep throwing yourself back in the fire, which I myself always, it's one of those things when you're thinking about it, you're like, oh, this is good. I think when I think about doing these style of adventures or races, you always think about the epic part. And then I actually, this normally doesn't happen to me, but I'm willing to admit this. And I told my wife this after the race. But when we were heading to, because the interesting thing about Badwater in particular is that you because it's crewed all the way through, you see the entire course start to finish as the crew. And then when you're driving there, you drive the reverse of the course to get all the way out there. So you're basically driving past everything that you're going to then have to get out of the car and run back. And I told my wife afterwards, I was like, I honestly don't think this has happened to me before, but I felt a little bit of dread before the start of the race. And I think it was just like, I knew it was going to be a long, tough stretch ahead. And I always know that, but there was something about that particular experience that made me feel that way. And the dread faded away, I think, once I started running, but it was just a good reminder that the best things come out of pushing yourself and putting yourself in the most uncomfortable situations.
And they always make the best stories anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Scott.
I was going to say this topic or this thread reminds me of Alex Hutchinson's book, The Explorer's Gene, that he recently wrote, that talks about why we do what we do. And we put ourselves in tough situations. It's a human thing, like you said, Don. I think of the people that rode on ships to come to the United States, or the people that crossed the plains, with a hand cart or a wagon with some horses, with everything they had, to a place that they've never seen, thinking that there may be a hope for a better future. And it was hard. A lot of people died doing this stuff. And, speaking of Misogi, doing something hard. Now Misogi says you shouldn't do something so extreme that you're going to die. I think that was one of the rules.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're right. I think humans, you look at almost any place on the planet we live. Humans live on almost everywhere on the planet, in the harshest conditions. We've gone to the moon. We're hopefully going to go to Mars. I mean, we're always pushing ourselves to be uncomfortable, which is a weird juxtaposition with how comfortable we are.
Huh. Yeah. Yeah, we're driven to these difficult things, yet we seek comfort. Let me turn my air conditioner down while I think about something uncomfortable.
Yeah, I wonder if things weren't as comfortable, would we have achieved as much as a human race? If things were uncomfortable for us in the 60s, would we have gone to the moon? I don't know.
What's that saying? I'm embarrassed to even try to even say it. Difficult times make for tough people, and soft times make. You can edit this out, Ryan, and you can do a little. But I don't hear anybody rescuing me. I thought with this crowd, they'll come right in. I just have to stumble a little bit.
There's somebody listening that's yelling at their on the top of their lungs, saying, "This is the quote."
It's a good one too. I'll look it up. Yeah, Adam.
I was just gonna say, Scott just reminded me that, and I forget if it was in my chapter or one of your chapters, but Michael Easter also talks about how we sort of like glamorize top athletes and things in our society today, and those athletes physiologically pale in comparison to how society, like everybody in society, was all these years, many years ago. And it's just interesting to think about how lifestyle has shifted priorities in things, and as such, I guess I don't often think about how the people that have made things comfortable for us now had to really, really suffer and struggle through things. Like Scott was the example he was giving earlier, and when you think about what it was like for them, it's like, it's way more impressive than anything we're seeing people do in today's world.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
I think did you look that up, Ryan? I don't know if you did, but I did, because I heard that person listening to this recorded podcast, and that person said, difficult times make tough people, and soft times make tough people soft.
Who wrote that?
Well, I got it from ChatGPT, so I don't know who actually wrote it. That was my reference.
Okay.
All right. So chapter 20. Do we have any time left for my chapter? I love this chapter. And I started it off saying,
you already started the chapter.
No, we've just been talking. I said my final closing line, and I've got more lines than that.
Oh, that's right.
And I apologize when we got on, before we started recording, that I hogged the very best chapter. And I didn't do it on purpose, but I realized reading through it, I unfairly grabbed the best chapter. And you guys, your chapters were great, but I love this chapter, and people should get this book just for this. And it talks about, how we've all heard that we were built to run, right? But we're also built to carry. That maybe the being built to carry was even more important, or as fundamental of who we are. So he kind of walks us through that. So consider that we were built to carry as well as built to run, or born to run is in the right context for this trail community. That humans are built for endurance, not speed. Usain Bolt, the fastest human, can run 23 miles an hour. And you've seen how fast that is when you've seen him run down that track on the television, at least. And elite marathoners run 13 miles an hour, sustain that for close to 2 hours. And age group marathoners, they run 3 to 4 hour marathons, and they run 6.5 to 9 miles per hour. And so I started thinking as I read past this, and I'll go to what I was thinking. The fastest animals, the antelope, can run 55 miles an hour. we're quite slow. If Usain Bolt can run in 23, antelope's running 55. The grizzly bear, and think about this, gentlemen, if we're getting chased by a grizzly bear out there on the trail, they can run 35 miles an hour. So don't try to outrun them. That's not going to work. And
there's been a couple times, Don. There's been a couple times on my trail runs here in Truckee where I've treed a bear, which is just the expression for when you scare a bear and it runs up into a tree. And I believe the 30-mile-per-hour thing is fact, because those things can fly, man.
Even up a tree 30 miles an hour.
That's crazy.
I think this year at Western States, Fiona, one of the elite women's racers, she was chased by a bear in the high country.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
In the book, he even mentions Paris Hilton's poodle that lives in her purse can run 30 miles an hour. That's faster than Usain Bolt, and that's the purse poodle.
What did you call it?
I said a purse poodle. But on a hot day, this is when we even the score, and this is where it gets interesting as trail runners, right? On a hot day, humans can outrun all of them over distance, thanks to our unmatched ability to sweat and regulate body temperature. So that's our human superpower, right? Being able to sustain just what Adam did out there for 135 miles, stay out there and get it done. But on a cold day, the title of the endurance champion goes to what? What do you think?
Penguin.
No, not the penguin. They're not very fast.
I know the answer, but it's because I listened to your chapter earlier today on my drive back.
And it is the sled dog. They're capable of running sub 4-minute miles for 100 miles day after day. That's pretty interesting. So if it's hot, we win, and if it's cold, we're out of the race. And so as I read through this stuff, if you guys have comments, this isn't just me chatting it up. You just say, "Wait, hold on." Yeah, Adam.
Yeah, I just that like. Hearing all of that, I thought, first of all, it was so interesting. But the other thing I love about it is, do you guys, when you hear that, don't you guys feel like, yes, we picked the right lane? You know, like this is what we're supposed to be doing. You know, that's how I felt. It was like, yeah, we are made for this. It seems extreme to a lot of people, depending on how far you're running or where you're going. But this is what we're made to do. It's just, I love that.
Adam,
isn't that odd? That when we tell people what we did last weekend, they just think that's nuts, but it's actually what we were designed to do.
Yeah.
It's Adam, to your point, it's our only lane that's available. All the other ones are blocked. Okay. It was the lane that was left.
We picked the right lane because there literally wasn't another one to go into.
That's right.
No, the other thing is, I'm confusing what was in what chapter. I think this was in my chapter, but there was also a reference to a percentage of people that don't exercise at all. And it was much higher than I thought, maybe 20% the people that just literally don't exercise. And so I like that always, there's layers to this, right? And I think we have all talked about this exact concept before, and I'm not going to get off on a tangent here and steal your thunder during your chapter, Don, but I think it's important to recognize that sometimes when you're around people that are doing awesome things and pursuing big goals, iron sharpens iron, and that's great, but you also have to keep it in the context of that's not what everybody is doing. So don't undersell what you're doing because your friend is doing something a little crazier, you know?
Yeah, and I know that I don't know whose chapter it was in, but it talked about some people literally get out of bed, shuffle to the refrigerator, shuffle off to the car to drive to work, to shuffle to the elevator, to shuffle home, to repeat and get in bed. That's the activity level for, it was like 20% of America. That's their activity level. And that's kind of scary. And we start to think about, heart conditions and diabetes and dementia and all these things. Shuffling doesn't take a lot of decision making. I'm not saying maybe we're crunching spreadsheets. So, I got it. But, we leave a lot left on the table when we don't engage in some physical movement on the planet,
It reminds me of what Dr. John Diana said when we were talking about, he's a orthopedic surgeon that does joint replacements. And we were talking, well, are we wearing out the tires on our car by running? And he said, He said, I'll answer that by painting a picture. He says, come to my waiting room at my office and look who's sitting in my office. It's not a bunch of runners.
And
It's a bunch of non-exercisers.
Yeah. There's, to your point, Adam, I like that, Scott. And to your point, Adam, you talked about carrying things, and they're not all dumbbells, perfectly balanced with a great grip. That carrying something that's odd shaped and difficult to carry, there's a lot of stabilization muscles that happen around that. You've got to recruit many muscles besides just one. Doing a bicep curl gets the bicep very, very well. But if you're carrying things using bicep, there's also a lot of muscles that are recruited to help keep it balanced and to move along. And so that ties to your point, Scott, that people that aren't doing anything are losing a lot of those stabilization muscles, and all of a sudden they start standing up out of a chair, or they trip, or and they don't have that kind of security around that joint, and they wear prematurely because stabilization isn't there. Proprioception isn't there at the foot. So I mean, it's kind of a pathology not to get out there and move. So none of that was in my chapter. So here we go.
Have we gotten to your chapter
yet?
Yeah,
you were in the chapter, but
okay.
I guess I give you guys permission to blow the chapter up at any time. I'm going to pull back on that just for a minute. Okay. This is short, and then you guys can go. Unlike other species that rely on bursts of speed, humans evolved for long distance movement, a survival trait that gave us staying power over time and terrain. The ability is less about performance and more about persistence. Enduring fatigue, discomfort, physical strain was key to our survival. Badwater 135, right there in a sentence. It was about persistence, enduring fatigue and discomfort and physical strain. That was the key to your finish line survival in 23 hours of 135 miles, starting in 108 degrees. I mean, that made me think of you when I was reading that. Why carrying is evolutionarily essential as running. And I started to think, here was a good book makes you think more about other things than just the subject in the book. It kind of takes you on a journey, like Scott calls them side trails. We're going to go down this rabbit trail. He says that. And I think a good book makes you go down a rabbit trail. And I started to think, I've never, most of our runners are in the bell curve. Otherwise, by definition, there wouldn't be a bell curve. So there's many of us that are just right there in that bell curve. And that we have a certain number in our tribe that run up front, and we have the rest of us we have both skills. We're not necessarily the fastest, but we have persistence and we serve our role. And so I was thinking about the tribes, the persistent hunting tribes. You needed your speedy guys and gals to get out in front, to wear that animal out, to just fatigue them to the point where then the guys and gals coming behind can catch up and then carry the kill back home. So there's roles for all of us. If you had a bunch of skinny people up front that are really speedy, they'd probably have to have the meal out there in the field. They would never get it back to camp. So everybody has a role, and it doesn't, and there's no, I've never stood on podiums. I've carried them as a volunteer, but I never stood on one. But that's okay, because
it's wrong. He placed second.
There was three runners, and so
he was second.
So but they didn't have a podium, Scott, and so so it's accurate. So there's a role for all of us that are out there doing things. We can stand proudly to say, yeah, I'm a carrier. I can bring this stuff back. I've got other skills besides speed in the legs. I've got the ability and endurance to carry this back. We're as important as the person up front. And so I wanted to point that out. So chapter 20 emphasizes that carrying is a fundamental to our evolution as running. Our ancestors didn't just hunt. They had to haul meat, firewood, tools, infants, and water across long distances. Human shoulders, hands, and upright posture evolved not just to throw or gesture, but to bear weight over time. We were designed to carry while walking. Some of our superpowers is just that, being able to carry. They talked about, you can have a chimpanzee who's half our size and twice our strength, right? Mm-hmm. But they can't carry. because they have kind of an awkward movement. You can picture in your mind a chimpanzee walking, but side carrying, they can only carry a few pounds because they're so wonky, he called it. But humans have developed long legs and stout torsos and very strong hands, and a person can put up to 75 pounds on the side and still carry it, much more than the 3 pounds from the chimpanzee that's twice our strength. So our anatomy is built to be, super athletes as far as just carrying. So interesting, all of our unique traits of being able to sweat and get out there with, long legs and tendon strength and springy ligaments in the foot and sweat glands across the body to regulate all this heat. We're like designed perfectly for all of this stuff.
Yeah. And I think the point is we're designed to do this, which is not comfortable, right?
Yeah, right.
Where instead of carrying a heavy weight or carrying the groceries, from the grocery store to the car, or maybe you should carry the groceries home instead of driving your car to the grocery store that's just around the corner.
Yeah, I went to one of those drop-off Amazon places where I had to bring a bunch of boxes. I had a trunk load of stuff, but I didn't want to make multiple trips. And I had a bag and like these boxes, and I still had to close my trunk. And I'm thinking, I'm doing a podcast episode on carrying, and here I am carrying all this stuff. If I was a chimpanzee, there's no way I could handle this. I am built to carry. Even with this, I'm built to carry.
Freaking chimpanzees.
So carrying was communal and purposeful. It connected physical effort to meaning and contribution. So it was something that tied the tribe together, that it was something that it was important and purposeful. And comfort has disconnected us. All the comfort has removed some of that communal bond of bringing meat back or water from a far off place, was serving the tribe and the community. That's not happening, so we lose that connection. Comfort has disconnected us. We've engineered hardship out of our lives, yet our minds and bodies still crave it. Oh, I think that's how we get on Ultra Sign Up and sign up for a race. Our minds and bodies still crave something hard. Things are too easy around us, but something inside of us is crying. Our DNA has said, it's kind of like driving a Ferrari. You got to speed a little bit sometimes because they were built for that, right? So we're kind of Ferraris walking around this earth. We really crave some of this discomfort. It ends with chapter 20 says, comfort dulls growth. Comfort dulls growth, while effort and endurance reconnect us with something primal and deeply human. Ooh, that's good stuff. That's why we do what we do.
So good.
Yeah, you're never going to become stronger by not stressing the muscles.
Right.
And you're not going to be faster or endurance runners by sitting on the couch.
And one of the things we learned,
stress the body.
You mentioned Dr. Fry earlier, the brain doctor that we were talking to, researcher. It's the heart is a muscle, legs are a muscle, but the brain is a muscle up there too, and it needs to be stressed and stretched. So all of it important. I think you stretched yours, Adam, out there. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I also, again, I think this was in your chapter, Don, but correct me if I'm wrong. And I think the term was super medium strength.
Yeah.
Where he talks about the combination of like endurance and strength. It's like the hunter-gatherers, they weren't like huge buff people that you might see at a gym that have muscles that aren't serving them. They were the right amount of strength, the right amount of leanness in order to have the skills that they needed. And that made me think of when we did the episode on Outlive by Peter Attia, how he was very, very much in favor of both the cardio and the strength stuff in tandem, and not because there's a lot of just cardio preachers and a lot of just strength preachers. And I think Michael Easter even says like people that happens because people are like what they're comfortable with. So if you're comfortable with going to the gym and lifting weights, you're going to defend going to the gym and lifting weights. And if you're comfortable just running, you're going to defend that. And so maybe if you're listening to this and you fit into one of those camps, maybe think about incorporating some of the other. I actually I've done some weighted vest training, and I have that, but I've never actually I've never, I guess, gone rucking before, and he talked a lot about that in chapter 20, Don. And as I was listening to it today, I think it was partially on the heels of Badwater. It seemed like a great recovery thing, but I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go rucking this upcoming week for sure. Put some weight on and just go around and explore a little bit, and I think that'll be really good. And he talks about how that can help with like the stabilization muscles and things that you might not do if you were just running, and it could be something that you could do even if you're injured too, because there's a lot less injury risk and a lot less stress on the body. So I'm intrigued by that. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I know he brought that up, and I don't know if it was your chapter or my chapter. He talked about some of these Delta Force and Green Beret and some of these elite fighting forces that the medium, they called it medium strong. Is that what he said? The medium?
Yeah, I think so.
That it's a cross between endurance and strength, and it's like a 175-pound man is, more fit than the guy in the gym that's pressing 400 pounds. That's not the guy. You want the Navy SEAL that has all the tools.
Well, I think the cool thing about this book, if we just read the title backwards, if you want to embrace, if you want to reclaim your wild, happy, and healthy self, embrace discomfort. The comfort crisis is just that. We're in a place where we're very comfortable. We need to do those things that inoculate boredom, that push us beyond our limits, and force us into an area of discomfort. And if we do that, we will become better runners, better human beings. We'll be able to reclaim our wild, happy, and healthy self. And so I guess my question to you two is this a good enough book that we need to have a second episode and talk about 3 more chapters?
Well, I'm sure there's more gold in those hills, Scott War, as you say. And I think if we dig in, we'll bring something out.
Yeah.
Let's
100%. I actually, I think as this was during your intro, I was going to say something about this, Scott, but it made me think, it's like when you see a great film or you read a great book, it's like, I'm usually the person that I'll go and like read a new book or watch a new film, but I think there's a huge case to be made. You can maybe learn more if you reread the great book.
Yeah.
Because the second read through sometimes just triggers other things. And that's what happened for me with this. It was like I was remembering the first time going through it, but things were hitting differently for sure.
Well, let's plan on doing that and doing a second one. So, Adam, we need to schedule 2 episodes: a Badwater episode and a part 2 of the Comfort Crisis. Now, we teased at the beginning of the episode about a project that Adam is working on called Adventure Scientists. Tell us a little bit more about that and how can we participate, especially us trail runners here in California.
Yes. So I have partnered with the Adventure Scientists group, and I have a team going for trail runners. So if you're in California and you like to run trails, please join the team. I'll send a link to you guys, Scott and Don, and you can put it in the show notes or wherever it's most convenient. And all you got to do is click on the link. It'll say, Adam Kimble's team. You just sign up, and then there's like a 20-ish minute kind of intro to explain how things work. And basically, you just go out on the trails on your next trail run and look for locations where you think it could be good to sample some dirt. So you have to carry some things with you, but you'll have these little test tubes. And
we've been told that we need to carry things. We learned that today, right?
Exactly.
We're born to carry.
Exactly. You're born to carry this kit so that you can help out. But I don't even know if I said this in the beginning. This is called the California Biodiversity Project. And basically it's all about preserving the ecosystem in California and looking at, they're going to take these samples of dirt, and after you send them back in, they're going to analyze them and decide what initiatives and basically where they should be devoting resources to help maintain and improve our trails and keep the places that we love, the wild places, as healthy as possible for as long as possible. So super cool project. I'm stoked to be a part of it, and I'd love for anybody to join. I think we're trying to collect as many samples as possible by the end of August. So by the time that this episode airs, there might only be maybe like 6 weeks left. But please, even if you think you might only do it once, sign up. They'll send you the kit. Get out there, sample some dirt, send it in, and it'll be great for everybody. So thanks in advance for anyone that can help out with that.
It sounds like the perfect way to inoculate boredom. Like going and sitting on a rock. Take these out, find a spot off the trail or wherever they suggest. Take a little soil sample. I mean, we're out there anyway. We love those trails. We love the dirt. Let's find out a way to maybe help preserve it. I think this is a great initiative, and I'd be surprised if you don't max out your team. Hopefully there's not a limit.
Yeah, no, there's not. So please join.
Adam, thank you for doing that. I think it's important for someone to spearhead something like that and to, make the rally cry to people to join in and challenge anybody hearing it. If they love their trails, get out there and show the love and let's preserve them so that they're as long as possible.
Give us a heads up. Are you still coaching? Do you have slots available? Where can someone get in touch and be coached by the 4th place finisher at the 2025 Badwater?
Yeah, best place to find me is adamkimble.com. Please reach out, whether it's for coaching, just to say hi, general advice. Always happy to chat and love engaging with everybody in the community. So please reach out.
Now, Adam, we owe you a hat. One is greater than none hat. We send all of our guests with our new tradition, starting with you.
We've been talking about one is greater than none on many episodes, not all of them, and we may not have talked about it on the 17 episodes that you've been on. Do you know what one is greater than none means? Or can you infer?
I can infer, but I don't know for sure. But I told you guys before we started recording that I love it, even though I don't fully understand it yet.
Well, that's good. Scott comes up with a lot of things. That Kokapelli, as to Scott's credit, one is greater than zero. It took me a while to warm up to it, just because I didn't quite understand it, because he had his greater than sign backwards, so I didn't quite understand it. But he's
and math wasn't Don's strong suit. He was more of a scientist. He was a biology student in high school.
So what does one greater than zero mean, Scott?
One is greater than zero means doing something is better than nothing. If you can't go for your 5-mile run today because of responsibilities or whatever, go run around the block. If you can't run a mile, go walk to the mailbox. Do something. Something is better than nothing. And there should be an equal signs that, and I don't know what the correct math expression, but one is greater than zero equals infinity. Oh, that's strong.
That's the next hat. We'll get these on the trail. Yeah.
There's not enough room on the hat.
It can wrap around, Scott. It can wrap around the hat. So if you wear it backwards.
And I will say, for those prog rock fans of my generation, if you're a Rush fan, on the backside of the famous 2112 album, there is a song that is called "Something for Nothing," and the chorus says, "You don't get something for nothing. You don't get freedom for free." And it's a great song that they probably wrote because I came up with the one is greater than zero. No, they didn't. Anyway, they're on sale. You can go to our website and get them. Adam, for the 17th, every guest that comes on our podcast for 17 times, they get a free hat.
Yes. And I told you guys that particular brand of hat, which you can see right here, I'm wearing, is perfect.
Runner.
Yep, runner. Yep. I have a very big head, and so I appreciate that they have hedged for that. Me and all the big head people out there appreciate it.
Adam, you're a humble man. You're not big-headed at all. You're very humble. And we celebrate with you on your finish through admiration and respect for a job well done.
Thank you, guys.
And you may not do it this week, but at some point after you're recovered, we hope that you put on your shoes and you go out and run.
Mas.